Kip Moore is here with us, obviously. And I got to tell you, this album, Wild Ones, Rolling Stone called it one of the most honest albums of 2015. And I really wouldn't expect anything less from you. You've always been an honest guy, honest performer. I always think, too, how many conversations I've had, a comment you made about doing shows and looking out into that audience and you're having a moment. And you're like the one artist that said, maybe the cell phones, it's a bit much sometimes with like the in-your-face kind of thing.
People, it's funny, like social media is such a funny thing now, period. But, there'll be somebody, they'll post after a show like, I'll never go to a Kip Moore show again. He told everybody that we had to put our phones up. They'll take the tiniest, it's kind of like Inquire or something, or People, whatever it is.
Right.
They'll take whatever a tabloid is, not People. I'm thinking of Inquire or whoever.
Magazine,
yeah, they'll take a tiny truth, and what I said in the crowd was, "Hey, if y'all don't mind, for this one song, let's all have a moment. Let's all have a moment. Let's just put our phones up for one song."
Yeah.
And they'll take that and be like, "He told me I couldn't have my phone out of the instrument." Come on, nobody said that. I just every now and then I think that the funny thing is every time I do that, the whole crowd applauds.
Yeah.
It's like we're all tired of the way we're always at our phone.
Right.
Like, sometimes I'm like, damn, put your phone down. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like it's just it's a way to kind of like let everybody be in the moment for a second. There's sometimes I'll see somebody that's like, in the really new generation, they're like 16, the front row at the show, and I'll watch and they have their phone up. I mean, the first 4 songs into the show, they've been watching the whole show through their screen.
Yeah.
And I'll just go over there and I'll kind of smile and I'll take their phone and I'll set it on my amp and I'll say, I'll give it back to you in 2 songs. And they'll laugh. And then I'll watch that same person for the next 2 songs. They're having the best time. Yeah. They're actually in it and they're having a good time. I'm
guilty of that.
We're all just trained now to constantly pick that thing up, and it's sometimes it's just, I think about how awesome it would have been playing music, in the 50s and 60s and 70s, and when those artists, they got up there and it was, no one had anything like that. I mean, even all through the 80s, you know what I mean? Nobody had that, and it's like, I can't imagine what that would have felt like with everybody just being glued on you and there's no distractions. You can go into a ballad or you can go into a little break and it's not going to be, everybody's looking down at their phone right during that break. You know what I mean?
Well, even sometimes when you're with people at the show and you turn to have a conversation and they're on their phone. So it's not just they're in their own, you can't have any kind of communication.
Yeah, I'm not against phones. Everybody thinks now that I'm like the big anti-guy, phone guy, but it's like, it's just gotten to be a bit too much.
Yeah.
It's gotten to be a bit too much. I was at a basketball game recently, an NBA game, and I was watching these 2 girls, and it was comical to me. It was downright comical. But I'm watching these 2 girls, probably late 20s. They're all dolled up, and they got to the game, and I don't think they watched one play in the game, and I'm not even exaggerating. There was literally 50 selfies that took place in a matter of 2 quarters. And when they weren't taking the selfie, you can tell it was complete, like, there was no conversation, nobody was smiling. But the minute it was time to take a selfie, it was like they were having the time of their life.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, the most amazing game, and everything's so great. And that's what everybody wants to project out into social media, and it's kind of a joke to me sometimes.
Well, and to kind of tie that of all of a sudden our lives become these snapshots, back to your album, because I think one of the interesting things people have commented, you have as well, is that you left some of those real moments on the album. There's breath, like where a producer would kind of go and, well, you could tighten that up there, if you were going to polish it. But you wanted that's a lot of realness.
Yeah, I mean, there's there wasn't a whole lot of cutting and pasting. And even like, whereas Up All Night, I can admit where Up All Night, for most part of the songs in that record, I sang the lead vocal probably 15 to 20 times for each song. And then we piece together phrases and those kind of things, where this record, I took 2 passes. It was pick it,
And did you know that going in, or was that the plan?
That's just the way
through?
I wanted to do it.
Yeah.
I wanted to do it that way, where it was like I took 2 passes, and it was like, there was one, I would say Lipstick is the only one. There was one line that I kept botching up, and that was the only one where I kept going back to. I was like, I gotta fix this. I just didn't have my juice that day. Some days you don't have it, but for the most part, man, that whole record was 2 takes, and it was like, me and Brett got in there, and it was like I would sing, I'd get warmed up, and I'd sing the whole way through 2 times, and then we would take, pretty much whichever take we're gonna take.
That's crazy. I know, like you've talked about, doing 200 shows a year. When you're writing an album is on the road and working musically, it's a lot of being worked out during the sound check. How intense are your sound checks then?
They're pretty intense, man.
I mean, everybody's got to be on.
My
right?
sound guy told me recently, he kind of, but they know what a maniac I am, but he kind of came up to me and he goes, "You do realize that you don't have to be here for sound check, right? Like your mic is dialed in, and artists don't come in for the sound checks." And I said, "Snake, I hate to be the bear, but for the rest of my career, I will be at every sound check. Yeah. I will be here. I'm going to make sure that it sounds the way I want it to sound. And I go out there at the front of house, and I tweak front of house. I know it drives him crazy sometimes. I'm like, man, I'm just not liking the way that snare is sounding. But we love each other. We get along great, and he loves that I care that much. But I do, man. The sound checks are pretty intense."
Speaking of doing 200 shows, your comment, I thought, was so great, because a lot of artists approach it from, this is my moment, this is when I'm going to win these people over. But the other side of it, and you basically said you're only 1 show away from losing a fan as well.
Yes.
Which I thought was a brilliant way to approach performing.
I look at every show like that. You've got, you think about, I'm not going to name the artist, but I can remember I was just, I really love this artist's early bodies of record, early bodies of work. And I remember buying the first 2 records and just being like, man, these records are great. And then I bought the 3rd, and I was like, this record's not very good.
Yeah.
Guess what? And I didn't think about it till after. I didn't buy the 4th.
Yeah.
You got one time, and it's the same thing with live performance. And I know I'll probably let some people down that have never come back. But I approach every single show, and it's tough, man. I mean, like, I don't even know what show this is this year. I hadn't slept in 2 nights. I carry a lot of stress on me just thinking about, there's a whole lot of stuff going on the business side of things. There's always so many moving parts, and I carry a lot of it with me. I carry a lot of when things aren't going good. I'm the guy responsible for writing all the songs. All of a sudden, I don't have a hit record, and it's like you're afraid the ship's going to sink, and you're worried about all the people that have invested with you, and now you're worried about their livelihoods, and you carry this massive weight with you all the time. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of a constant struggle for me in that sense.
One of the things you do to take that weight, I think, off your shoulders is a little bit, and I'm envious of it, but you try to schedule in going on these surfing trips. And you go by yourself.
I do.
You immerse yourself wherever you're going.
I got my good surfing buddy Pete's in the studio today, and he's got a place in Costa Rica. And I've been going down there and crashing, and we surf it up. And he's got a great little spot. And I disappear for a while. I'll go to Maui at some point, probably by myself for a couple weeks before we start back up touring next year.
How crucial is that? Can you ever imagine? Like, what would you be like if you didn't do that?
Man, I'll tell you, man. I recently had somebody, I about took a swing at him, but I've worked every job there's just about to work. I mean, I've worked so many manual labor jobs, all the lay inside, bartender for 2 years. I've done construction. I've worked golf course maintenance, done all the, with tractors nonstop, doing everything. I've done everything, the watermelon patches, you name it. And he was telling me, man, well, all you do is play music, man. I mean, like, and I almost took a swing at him, but it's a whole different kind of grind. First of all, it's your circus. People don't understand that, but like, you're in charge of the whole circus. Yeah. This is not somebody else that's in charge of this. You're all of a sudden overnight you're running a corporation. You're responsible for all the semis, the buses. You're the one feeding everybody. So it's like you're in charge of all the ins and outs, and trying to learn how to run that overnight is pretty difficult, and when it blows up, and you carry a lot of that with you. You carry so much of it with you, and then I've always had a tough time sleeping, but especially with this, and you're traveling, and I've maybe slept 2 hours maximum in the last 3 nights combined.
That's not good, Kip.
And when you're yeah, I know, right? And then when you're on the schedule of going all day long, and my day doesn't stop until 2 a.m.
Yeah.
I'll play the show tonight. I'll probably be over at 12:30, and I'll sign for 2 hours after. and it'll really wear you out.
Don't listen to That Was Us if you're going through a breakup.
That's
right?
my favorite on the record.
I listened to it. I was like, I want to listen to it again, but I can't.
Yeah.
So that was good. And obviously, you talked a lot about the bass line through a lot of these songs as well. It's just a really interesting record. And What I Do, could that also be called the Ballad of Kip Moore?
It could. That or Round the Blame, one or the other one. One or the other. What I Do was going to be the lead single. Yeah, that's a fun song to do live, man, for sure.